As a motorsport fan my whole life, I've always wondered, what does a racing driver actually do on a race weekend? It may sound like a silly question, but of course a racing driver normally has one or two races on that Sunday, but what else do they do? I thought that was a really interesting thing that I never really knew the answer to. So I got some great access thanks to Andreas Beckman, and on the Donington Sunday weekend of the TCR UK finale, Andreas helped me with this video and showed me what actually a racing driver does, all the behind the scenes of looking at data and preparing for a race. Now, I thought this was particularly interesting because Andreas is in his first year of on-track racing. He'd done a couple of years of rallycross before this, but this was his first year in a touring car and any car that races on a permanent racetrack. So it's really interesting to see how more of a novice professional driver goes about preparing for a race weekend. So, nonetheless, let's head over to Andreas introducing this video in Donington Park.
So welcome to the video. I'm Andreas Beckman and I'm a TCR driver. And now during the day you're going to follow me around here at the TCR UK final here at Donington. So follow me around for the day.
It was a very typical October day in the United Kingdom, and it was coming down with rain quite a lot at the start of the Sunday, which left the team indoors to do the setup changes for the two races on the Sunday. Qualifying was done in the dry on the Saturday, and Andreas got it on the front row of the grid in P2 just behind teammate Dan Lloyd, and the team needed to adjust all three cars to make sure that they were ready for the two races on the Sunday, and the first of which races were starting around 1 PM on the Sunday.
So here we are now in our driver room. So here we have all our race suits and stuff. So here we are changing our stuff during the races. And also we have over here we have like the helmets and stuff like that. So this is like our general driver room, and also for the mechanics where they have all their spare parts and stuff like that. Yeah, so this is really our room where we are going between the races and making ourselves ready before and also just after when we put our stuff away.
Now, something that Andreas mentioned was that after each race they go in there and dry the helmets, and that really fascinated me because I never really thought of that before. But of course, when you're in a touring car for 30, sometimes 40 minutes, you're going to be sweating. There's going to be moisture accumulating inside the helmet. So I wanted Andreas to just quickly show me how these helmet dryers work, because this is an invention I would have never known about if I didn't go on this day with Andreas and learning about his day as a motor racing driver.
Alright, so here is our helmet dryers, and it's like a timer on them. So you put them on, and you can have them on for 30 minutes, and that's very useful because after a race everything it gets really hot, and it's really hot in the cars, so it gets really sweaty. So that's a really good thing to have after a race.
So for someone like Andreas, in his first season of on-track racing, any bit of information is important. He's got his driver coach who's been helping him throughout the whole season in both TCR UK and the Swedish Touring Car Championship in teammate Dan Lloyd, but also after each session it's very important to look at the data and understand where you can improve. So Andreas is going to quickly talk us through here what he does after each session and how he goes about learning where he can improve for the next session ahead.
So here we are now in the office where we have like the engineers here, and we are going through like the data and onboards and stuff like that. And now this morning we have gone through some onboards from yesterday's qualifying to see what I could have improved and what I was missing in the qualifying to be on pole. I also have been through some data also, like this, looking at the graphs and seeing where I can improve as well. And also we have been today, when it's a lot of rain today, so it's going to be different conditions than yesterday. So then we have been looking through on the track map to see what kind of lines has to be different in the rain, because in the rain you have to change your lines a bit because you have a different kind of grip. So that's what we have been doing now, and also going through like different kind of starts now when you have much less traction. So also going through that with my engineer.
And after all of the data has been studied, and after many hours of waiting at Donington Park, we were ready for the first race of two on the Sunday. Now, TCR races are normally 30 minutes long, but due to the adverse weather conditions at Donington Park on this Sunday, the races were shortened to both 15 minutes. So it was a little bit more of a sprint race rather than the endurance maybe they're both used to. So, time for the first race of the day on the Donington National Circuit. So Andreas lined up on P2 on the grid alongside his teammate Dan Lloyd, and both of which got a good start, but championship contender Ollie Taylor put it into the gravel at turn 1, which meant it was a West Coast Racing 1-2-3 out of the first corner. Andreas had good pace in the first couple of laps, but couldn't quite match his teammate Dan Lloyd, who was going for the championship and looked like he was going to win that championship if he finished where he was. But Josh Price in the pink Honda Civic was catching Andreas, and they battled away for a good battle for P2 as Dan Lloyd stroked clear in the lead of this race. But the battle was costing both of them time, and even though Andreas was doing his best, he was keeping Josh Price behind him. Eventually, after a couple of laps, he did crack, making a small mistake, allowing Josh Price to eventually get through in the Honda Civic. But unfortunately for Josh Price's side of things, he ended up retiring a couple of laps later, which put Andreas back into second position. And it was clear Andreas had the pace in the later stages of the race to fend off some fellow Honda Civic drivers who were Finley Crocker and Ollie Taylor, who was catching up after his gravel trap moment early on in the race. But it was a really interesting closing couple of laps to the race, as both of the Hondas really started to put the pressure on. But it was a fantastic drive for Andreas, and his first time in the wet conditions at Donington Park in this TCR UK car. And for someone who's never driven this track in those conditions, I think it's very, very impressive, because this track is not very forgiving. We saw that in the support races as well. So many cars were going off the track and making mistakes and getting involved in accidents, but Andreas kept it calm, and in these very treacherous conditions managed to bring home second position, which was fantastic for him, and all but securing third place in the championship for him, which obviously was a great factor for him in his first season of on-track racing. And as Andreas headed to the podium, he scored some great points in the first race here at Donington Park, and we look ahead to the second race of the day, where hopefully things are going to be just as good. And there is the winning photographs there. Dan Lloyd becomes the champion, so congratulations to him. Fantastic job from him and the whole season in TCR UK, and he was the deserving champion. Andreas learning from his teammate and doing well in P2.
Alright, so now the first race is finally raced. We had some delays, but now finally we could race. It was a very tricky race because I have never been here before in the wet, so it was a new experience for me, but still a very good result. I'm pleased with second place in the end, so that was really fun. I had some great battles on track for second position, so it was a really tough race.
And after the race was complete, Andreas quickly showed how he dried off his equipment after the first race, which did get quite wet because of the pretty adverse conditions.
Right, so now the race is just done, so now I'll put my helmet on the helmet dryer, and that's because after the race the helmet and everything is really sweaty, and especially now when it's wet also outside, everything gets wet from the rain. But I put my balaclava here and getting everything dry. And now for race 2, I will speak with the engineers now for race 2 and see how the car was behaving, and we will try to make some changes for race 2.
And then it was time for the big second race, the reverse grid race of the day. There isn't a massive gap between the first and second race, so setup changes can be done, but just in a smaller time frame than would be expected in a normal race weekend, where races are separated over Saturdays and Sundays. But Andreas was ready, starting towards the back of the grid this time, which gave the opportunity to Andreas to do a couple of overtakes where he was more defending in the first race. But he knew he was one of the quickest drivers in the first race of the day, so it was time to transform that pace into the second race. So you can see Andreas starting towards the back of the grid as the lights went out. He got a good start, overtaking his sister Jessica down to turn 1, looking to get past the Honda Civic drivers as well. And as they roared past, he was doing a great job, and he was already making up a couple of positions as other cars were making mistakes as well. And as he powering down the tricky part here, this is really crazy in the wet conditions. This part of the track here, the cars were all over the place, and it was good that Andreas managed to just keep it in the right direction a lot of the time, where I thought, how on earth are these guys doing this? There's some incredible car control here. But Andreas was doing a good job. He was making his way through the field, and he was coming towards the top 3 as they were all closing down. Josh Price was leading the race. He had a fantastic start and started towards the front of the grid from the reverse grid after not doing so well in qualifying. But after a fantastic start, he pulled away, and the battle was more for P2. And currently in P2 was Carl Swift, and Andreas had made his way to be battling with Stuart Lyons and his teammate Dan Lloyd. It was a great four-way battle for second position, and of course you want to be on the podium in the last race of the season. It's a great thing to end the season on, and Andreas was doing his best. He was trying to get past Stuart Lyons in the green and white car for third place, but unfortunately, whilst he was trying to get the overtake done, his teammate Dan Lloyd managed to get past him and finish in third place. But it was a great end to the season for Andreas, a second place in the first race, a fourth place from the back in the second race, and I think he'd be very happy with that result. And he explained how he felt after that great end to the season.
Alright, so now race 2. It was a really tough race. We had a lot of battles, and I went from P9 up to P3 at one stage, and then I got passed in then to 4. But still a good weekend overall, I think. I'm really pleased. And it was a nice way to finish the year today with one podium. So thanks for watching this, and yeah, thank you a lot.
And as is the case for Andreas after every race meeting in the UK, is to quickly get to the airport and fly back to Sweden. Now that was fortunately all we had time for with Andreas, because he had to go and get his flight down in London. But overall, a really enjoyable day in TCR Donington. I've loved the series since the start, and I think it's really great to see how it has grown and some great battles along the way. And congratulations to Dan Lloyd, the eventual TCR UK champion for 2018, and hopefully it's the start of a great championship in the UK for touring cars.
As usual, after the race we always had to hurry up to the flight, so today is the day after the race now, and right now I'm on the way from the airport at home. Yesterday was a good race. Both race 1 and race 2 was good. As you heard before, race 1 I was second, and then in race 2 I was starting 8th, and I was up to second place at one point in the race. But then in the end I was finished 4th after some hard battles with my teammate and other drivers. And yeah, it was a great day yesterday. I'm really pleased with this year's racing in TCR UK. I have been on the podiums many times, and now I'm third in the championship, so a good year. And big thanks to my team West Coast Racing for this year. That has been a great year, and also congrats to my teammate Daniel Lloyd for winning the series, and also a good job by my sister Jessica for this year's races.
And that is it for a Sunday as a racing driver. A massive thank you to Andreas for his time at Brands Hatch and also at Donington as well. I had a great chat with Andreas. You might have seen it on my channel already. We had a nice little interview at Brands Hatch, and that sort of sparked us keeping in touch. And then going to Donington, I was like, I really want to make this little documentary here, and hopefully it's given a bit of an insight of what drivers do behind the scenes, because of course we get to see a lot of stuff with modern day technology. Formula 1 obviously showing so much, but on the smaller level of the motorsport scale, something like TCR, we don't sometimes get to see a bit of the backstory behind the race weekend and the race day. So hopefully this gave a little bit of an insight behind the scenes of a TCR driver for a race weekend. Massive thank you to Andreas. I really appreciate his time, and hopefully we'll be keeping in contact, and maybe we can do a couple of little videos in the future. I think that'd be really cool, because hopefully he's going on to an even bigger championship in 2019. So there we are. Hopefully you did enjoy the video. Unfortunately, because of all the restrictions we had, we didn't get all of the footage that we wanted, and because we didn't get trackside access, and the weather really wasn't playing in our favour. Meaning, yeah, it was a little bit harder to film some of the areas that we were hoping to do. So overall, there we go. Hopefully you enjoyed. Massive thank you to my friend John as well, who helped me out with this. So links to his social media as well as Andreas's down below. Andreas actually does a race vlog after every single race, and I think they're really interesting, especially seeing his style from going from rallycross to motorsport on the racetracks. I think it's really interesting to see his development. So follow both of them down in the description. Andreas and John, massive thanks to both of them for helping me out with this documentary. It wouldn't have been possible without either of them. So thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you all around soon. Goodbye.